Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Sarah of Rich Textures Crochet, and today we're going to learn how to crochet the Sweetheart Beanie. Now this is the first crochet hat in the 2024 Wonderful Hats Crochet Along, so welcome if you are joining me for that event. If this is your first time hearing about the Wonderful Hats Crochet Along, head down into the description of this video, and down there you will find a direct link to all the information that you're going to need for this event. Now today our hat is the Sweetheart Beanie. It features these beautiful puff stitch heart texture, and there will be a matching scarf for this beanie as well a little later on. The beanie has a little bit of a slouch to it. You can adjust that if you'd like by working more or less rows. I'll also give you instruction later on how to change the width of your beanie. This beanie will fit an adult head with a 20 to 22 inch, maybe 23 inch circumference. Today for the tutorial I'm going to be working in a little bit of a worsted weight yarn. This is the Woolies by Lion brand. It's an acrylic and wool blend. It's a 4 weight with 197 yards per ball. You're only going to need one ball to complete this hat, unless you would like to work a yarn pom-pom, then you might need a little bit more. The hat can be worn without a pom-pom, as I have shown it here so you can see the top, or with a pom-pom, a faux fur, or a yarn one. It's really up to you. You're also going to need a 5mm or an H8 crochet hook, and there are links to these items in the description of this video. So thank you so much for joining me. Also down in the description you'll find a direct link to the free written instructions for this hat. So thank you so much for joining me. While you're here, I invite you to subscribe. Take a look around. Don't forget to check back. The matching scarf pattern for the Sweetheart Beanie will be out by the end of the week. So you can look forward to that. Let's grab our hooks and yarn and get started. Now our hat today is worked from the brim up to the top. So we're going to start by working the brim of the hat, and the brim is worked in rows. You're going to start by making a slip knot, and then by working a foundation chain of 10 chains. So chain 10. If you'd like a wider or more narrow brim, you can chain more or less chains. It doesn't matter how many. Today I'll just be chaining 10. You're then going to, for row 1, work a slip stitch into the second chain from your hook, and then slip stitch into each stitch all the way across. Now another point to customize the hat a little bit more. I know slip stitches are not a fan favorite, so if you'd like to switch up these slip stitches with single crochet or half double crochet or a combination, you can certainly do that. Otherwise, slip stitch in each stitch all the way across. When you come to the end of your row, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now in order to get that ribbed look effect, you're going to continue working slip stitches all the way across. For row 2, this time only working them in the back loop only. So when you look at the top of your stitch, you have the front loop, and then you have the back loop, which is this loop that's furthest away from you. Inserting your hook under that loop only, slip stitch into that first stitch, and each stitch across. Your chain 1 at the end of each row does not count as a stitch, so you will always have 9 stitches in each row. At the end of row 2, chain 1, turn your work, and you're now going to repeat that row 2 until the band of your hat measures approximately 16 to 17 inches when it's laid flat and relaxed. So slip stitch in the back loop only of that first stitch, and then into the back loop only of each stitch all the way across. Chain 1 turn your work, and repeat. Again, you're going to repeat this until your work from the beginning, just when it's laid flat and not stretched out, measures approximately 16 to 17 inches. Again, if you're adjusting the size of your hat, you can also adjust this band as well. Meet me back here once you've worked the length of your hat brim. Once you have worked 16 to 17 inches of ribbing, and again, this is just relaxed. When you stretch the brim of your hat, it should fit comfortably around an adult head. So 20 to 22, 23 inches. Okay. You're then going to take your hat brim and you're going to fold it over so that those two short ends meet. You're then going to chain one and then working the back loops only through both thicknesses, you're going to slip stitch in each stitch all the way across. This is going to join those two ends together. So working in the back loop only of the front side, back loop only of the back side, slip stitch in each stitch all the way across. When you come all the way across, there's no need to fasten off. Chain one, turn your work, and turn it so that it is right side out. You want that slip stitch seam on the inside of your hat. You're then going to begin working the hat body, and we're going to work around this rough edge of the brim. For round one of your hat body, you're going to evenly work 72 half double crochet stitches all the way around. So I'm just inserting my hook where it feels comfortable, just down a little bit into the top of the brim, and you'll want to work 72 half double crochet stitches evenly around. Now, if you would like to adjust the size of your hat for this first round, you're simply going to need a multiple of 8 stitches. So you can adjust that by working a multiple of 8 half double crochet stitches. For this adult size, I'm working 72. If it helps, you can place a stitch marker about halfway around and work half your stitches on one side, half your stitches on the other side. You'll just want to make sure that they're worked fairly even. Once you have worked your 72 half double crochet stitches all the way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. Do not turn your work. Now for rounds 2 and 3 of the hat body, for the next 2 rounds, you're going to chain 1 and you're going to work in the third loop all the way around and work a half double crochet into each stitch. To find your third loop, you're going to look at the back of your half double crochet stitch. You will see a loop that runs just below your back loop. This is your third loop. So you have your front loop, your back loop. At the back of the stitch, you have your third loop. So half double crochet into that first stitch in the third loop only, and then into the third loop only of each stitch all the way around. Join with the slip stitch into the top of the first stitch, chain 1, and then repeat. You're going to do this for rounds 2 and 3, and then meet me back here. At the end of your round 3, you're joining with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. Still do not turn your work. This is what your work looks like from the beginning with your 2 rounds of half double crochets in the 3rd loop. Now for round 4, we're going to start working some of the texture, the Sweetheart texture in our beanie. You're going to begin by chaining 1 and then work a single crochet into the same stitch as joining. Skip the next 3 stitches and work 7 double crochet stitches all into the next stitch. So 7 double crochets all into the same stitch. Skip the next 3 stitches and single crochet into your next stitch. You're now going to repeat that all the way around. Skip the next 3 stitches and work 7 double crochets into the next stitch. Skip the next 3 stitches and single crochet into your next stitch. Repeat this all the way around until you have 3 stitches remaining. Once you come all the way around, at the end of round 4, you're going to have 3 stitches remaining. Skip those 3 stitches and join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. At the end of your round 4, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now for round 5, you're going to begin by working a puff stitch into the same stitch as joining. To work your puff stitch, yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch as joining, which was that single crochet, yarn over and draw up a loop. You'll want to do that a total of 4 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're then going to yarn over and draw that yarn through all the loops on your hook. That is your puff stitch. You're then going to chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches, and single crochet into your next stitch. Chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches, and into your next single crochet, you're going to work a puff stitch, chain 2, and puff stitch back into the same single crochet stitch. You're now going to repeat that all the way around. Chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches and single crochet into the next stitch. Chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches, and into that next single crochet work a puff stitch, chain 2, and puff stitch back into the same stitch. All the way around until you repeat that all the way around until you come back to your first puff stitch. When you come all the way around to your first puff stitch, you're going to finish off the round by chaining 3, skipping your next 3 stitches, and into that same stitch as the first puff stitch, work 1 puff stitch, chain 2, and then join with a slip stitch into the top of that first puff stitch. You're then going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now slip stitch into that chain 2 space, the first chain 2 space, and chain 3, sorry. And that's going to be a double crochet stitch. Your chain 3 will always count as a double crochet stitch. You're then going to work 3 more double crochets into that same chain 2 space. Skip the next chain 3 space and single crochet into the next single crochet stitch. Skip the next chain 3 space and into your next chain 2 space, work 7 double crochets. You're going to repeat this all the way around. Skip the next chain 3 space, single crochet into your next single crochet. Skip the next chain 3 space and work 7 double crochets into your next chain 2 space. Repeat this all the way around until you come back to that starting chain 3. At the end of round 6, you're going to finish off with a single crochet, then skip the next chain 3 and into that same chain 2 space as your starting chain 3, you're going to work 3 more double crochet stitches. And then join with a slip stitch into the top of that turning chain 3, that starting chain 3. Chain 1 and turn your work. Now for round 7, we're going to begin by working a single crochet into the same stitch as joining. So that's once again into the top of that starting chain 3. You're then going to chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches, and into your next single crochet, work your puff stitch, chain 2, and puff stitch back down into the same single crochet stitch. Chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches, and single crochet into your next stitch. You're going to repeat this all the way around. Chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches into your next single crochet, work a puff stitch, chain 2 and puff stitch into the same stitch, chain 3, skip 3, and single crochet all the way around until you come back to your first stitch. At the end of round 7, you're going to finish off with a chain 3 and then join with a slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet stitch, chain 1, and turn your work. Now for round 8, we're going to single crochet into the first stitch, the same stitch as joining, and then work 7 double crochet stitches into the next chain 2 space. So you're skipping that chain 3 and then working 7 double crochets into the next chain 2 space. Skip the next chain 3 space and single crochet into your next stitch. Repeat that all the way around. Skip the next chain 3 space, work 7 double crochets into your next chain 2 space. Skip the next chain 3 space and single crochet into your next single crochet all the way around. At the end of round 8, you're going to join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. You are then going to chain 1 and turn your work, and then for rounds 9, 10, 11, and 12, you're going to repeat rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8 once more. So your round 5 began with that puff stitch into that same stitch as joining. Chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches, and single crochet, and so forth. So starting with that round 5, repeat rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8 once more, and then meet me back here. At the end of round 12, you will have repeated rounds 5 to 8 once more, and this is what your work looks like from the beginning. You're then going to chain 1 at the end of round 12, turn your work. We're going to work one more repeat round, and we're going to, for round 13, repeat round 5. So puff stitch into our same stitch as joining, chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches and single crochet, chain 3, skip the next 3 stitches and work your puff stitch, chain 2 and puff stitch into the next stitch. So go ahead, repeat that round 5 once more, and this will be your round 13, and then we're going to begin to close the top of our hat. At the end of round 13, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. We're now going to work some decrease rounds in our crochet beanie, and I want to continue this texture just a little bit longer in through to the top of the hat. So for round 14, we're going to slip stitch into that starting chain, or that chain 2, that first chain 2 space, and chain 3. This counts as a double crochet stitch. You're then going to only work 2 double crochets also into that chain 2 space. Next, you're going to skip the next chain 3 and single crochet into the next stitch. Skip the next chain 3 and work 5 double crochet stitches into the next chain 2 space. You're going to repeat this all the way around. Skip the next chain 3, single crochet into the next single crochet stitch, skip the next chain 3, and work 5 double crochet into the next chain 2 space. Repeat that all the way around. When you come all the way around, you're going to finish off at the end of round 14 with 2 double crochets into that same chain 2 space that you started in, and then you're going to join with a slip stitch into the top of your chain 3. You can then chain 1 and turn your work. Now for round 15, we're going to single crochet into that same stitch as joining. You're then going to chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches, and into your next single crochet work 1 puff stitch, then chain 1 and work a puff stitch back into the same stitch. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches and single crochet into your next stitch. Chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches and into your next single crochet, work a puff stitch, chain 1 and puff stitch back into the same stitch. Repeat this all the way around. At the end of round 15, you're going to finish off with a chain 2, skip the next 2 stitches, and join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. Chain 1 and turn your work. Now for round 16, we're going to single crochet into the same stitch as joining. You're then going to skip the next chain 2 space and work 3 double crochet stitches into the next chain 1 space. Skip the next chain 2 space and single crochet into the next stitch. Skip the next chain 2 space and work 3 double crochet stitches into your next chain 1 space. You're going to repeat this all the way around. Skip the next chain 2, single crochet into your next stitch. Skip the next chain 2, single crochet into the next, work 3 double crochets into the next chain 1 space. Repeat this all the way around. At the end of round 16, we're going to join with a slip stitch into the top of our first single crochet stitch. At the end of round 16, you will not turn your work. You're going to remain with the right side of your work facing, and for round 17, chain 1. You're then going to work a half double crochet into each of the first 3 stitches. Next, work a half double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. To work your half double crochet 2 together, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and drop a loop. Insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. That's your half double crochet 2 together. You're then going to repeat that all the way around. Work a half double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, followed by a half double crochet 2 stitches together over the next 2 stitches. Repeat this all the way around. When you come all the way around at the end of your round 17, you're going to finish off with a final half double crochet into your final stitch and then join with the slip stitch into the first stitch. Now for round 18, you're going to chain 1, and once again working in the third loop all the way around, you're going to work a half double crochet into each of the first 2 stitches. You're then going to work a half double crochet 2 stitches together, all in the third loops of the stitches all the way around. You're going to repeat this all the way around, work a half double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, followed by a half double crochet 2 stitches together over the next 2 stitches, all the way around until you come to that first stitch, and then join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. Once you come all the way around, you can join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. Now for round 19, once again working in the third loop all the way around, you're going to chain 1, work a half double crochet into the first stitch, and then half double crochet 2 stitches together. Half double crochet into the next stitch, and then half double crochet 2 stitches together. Repeat this all the way around and join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. At the end of round 19, join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. We have one more round to work. You're going to chain 1, working in the third loop all the way around. You're simply going to work a half double crochet 2 together all the way around. Once you come around to your first stitch, you can join with a slip stitch into the top of your first stitch. I'm just going to keep working all the way around. Once you come all the way around, you'll just finish off with a half double crochet into that final stitch, join with the slip stitch into the top of the first stitch, and then fasten off, leaving a little bit of a long tail. You're then going to use that long tail to sew the top of your hat closed. I just have to grab a yarn needle here. Take your yarn needle, thread that long tail through. To close the top of my hat, I like to do this part while it's turned inside out. And you're simply going to weave your yarn in and out through that top round of stitches, all the way around until you come back to that first stitch, at which time you can then simply pull it closed. I like to secure it at this point with a little bit of a knot so that it's not going to unravel. You can then use that tail to attach a pom-pom if you would like to the top, if you're going to add a faux fur one, or go ahead and make a yarn one. Otherwise, you're going to tuck that tail in, turn your beanie right side out, and that is all there is to making your Sweetheart Beanie. So thank you so much for joining me. While you're here, again, I invite you to subscribe if you happen to make the Sweetheart Beanie. Be sure to tag Rich Textures Crochet so that I can come by and admire it. I always love to come by and admire it. And if you are working this as part of the crochet along, you may want to add that wonderful Hats Cal hashtag so that others can come by and enjoy it as well. Once again, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Until then, happy crocheting. Bye.